Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of CantoSense, where we are embracing Chinese culture for Christian living. And what we aim to do here is to help navigate through the complexities, of which there are many, of Chinese culture so that we can live fully Chinese and fully Christian. In our last episode, we talked about Qingming Festival or Tomb Sweeping Festival, how we venerate the dead and honor our ancestors. And so we figured that naturally coming out of that topic, people would then ask about Chinese traditional funeral rites. You know, what am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? And I think there's different schools of thought on that, right? So I thought it'd be great today, before our special guest joins us, that if you could take us through what are the general different schools of thought on participating in Chinese funeral rites as a Christian.
If our loved one's not a believer and they've passed on, and we end up with a funeral rites that is traditionally Taoist or Buddhist, and a lot of Christians don't know what to do. Should we participate in these activities and rituals, or should we not? If you look at a lot of the rituals that we do at Chinese funeral rites, a lot of them have religious significance. At least from the surface, it seems like they have a lot of religious significance, but is that really the case? So what ends up happening is that we stand on the side, much to the disapproval of our family members who think that we should be participating, because if you're a filial daughter, you should be doing that. We can't do it because it's, all these have superstitious implications. Or we may err on the other side where we will do everything that they ask us to do because we feel that that's the only way we can show our filial piety. But is that really the case? Before we even get into that, it would be good to actually even flesh out what are the things that are actually done, and what are the ones that we are concerned about, and what are the ones that we can perhaps participate in.
And this tension that you just painted, I mean, of course, it's extremes, but I think most people gravitate to one or the other. And
yes,
this is
exactly.
a tension that has existed for generations. I mean, and it's really not talked about enough in Christian circles, right? I mean, have you ever heard it talked about in church? I mean, I grew up in Canada, so I don't know if that's different, but have you ever heard it talked about in church?
Yeah, I think not enough. And what ends up happening is we live with a lot of guilt, especially if we decided, not to participate, and we live with that guilt, and that's sad.
Yeah. All right. So we are thrilled to have our special guest with us today, Mr. Wong from White Lily. He is very seasoned in this space, has been observing and researching this for a long time. So welcome to CantoSense. Would you like to tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, and why is it you know so much about this topic?
Thank you for having me. I'm from Hong Kong, and I am an owner of a very unique Christian funeral service company, White Lily. About 8 years ago, I started this company with the aim of evangelizing in this space through this process and using it as a platform to help people. But we're unique in a few different ways. First, in Hong Kong, being a Chinese city, majority of the people have Buddhist and Taoist funerals, and Christian funerals, they exist, but they're not done very well. So all the funerals we do were in churches, which was really a groundbreaking thing in Hong Kong. Being Chinese, interestingly, even the churches sometimes will shy away from doing funerals because they just don't want to deal with death. It's kind of a taboo in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
We are a full event organizer. So we have our own designers, we have our own musicians, printing. So all areas of this process we take care of. The third one is that we only do Christian, Catholic, and neutral funerals with the aim of telling people about the good news and showing the glory of God and during this time.
In your observation and your study, do you think there are any funeral rituals that are practiced in the Chinese culture that perhaps could be introduced into the Christian context of funerals?
As Christians, I think the easy way is to hold on so tight to the ritual that we believe is God ordained, and then you force it on others without thinking about the real meaning. Unity is the key. The evangelizing done during this time is not going to be through Bible verses, explanation, or telling them the gospel. It's not none of that. But it's not only that. It's about how Christians are loving during this time, because during
It's a
this
time for
time
witnessing.
is a
Yeah,
time
yeah,
for witnessing. Keep the unity as much as you can. Respect what they believe is also very important. To respect, but not
Mhm.
to accept. You don't do it yourself. There is a line that you cannot cross. And
Correct.
so those are the foundation. Then you start looking at every single one of these requests. A lot of them are man-made rules. I don't really see them in the Bible. So, for example, a candy and Kleenex in the packet is well-meaning. Actually,
Yeah,
it's supposed to help you wipe the tears. So what is the big deal about accepting that
exactly.
as part of the funeral? Now, when it comes to bowing, I completely think that if you bow to your mom because the mom passed away, and then in China, in thousands of years, your
Hmm.
parents is part of actually the respect that you give.
Exactly. Japanese bow to each other as a sign of
It's
respect.
nothing to do with
Yeah,
worshiping them. But if
absolutely.
you stop them from bowing, then you know what? You are making a huge block for them to accept, the God that doesn't even demand that. So I've had families, these are 50, 60, 70-year-old people, and their old grandmother died. The entire family just bowed and on their knees, and then, it's quite a scene. And they let them express their respect for their elderly. Now, burning incense to me is a borderline case because if you burn incense because you believe that this is
Hmm.
a ritual that is going
Yeah.
somewhere then that's my line. I don't burn
Hmm.
incense for people.
Hmm.
There are rituals, for example, Lam Fo. At the end of the funeral, after cremation,
Yeah.
they're supposed to step over
Over
a
the fire.
burning fire so
Yeah.
that you will get rid of all the
That
bad
spirit.
spirits.
Yeah.
A lot of people won't come to funeral unless they get the Lam Fo, because otherwise they will bring the bad spirit home. Now, I don't do that for people. So what do you do? At that point, you can actually separate. You don't do it. You just watch. There are lines that you can cross, but for those that it's not really a spiritual act, then why not? You actually will express the love of Christians, the respect of other people. So I think really try not to sit on your high horse and think that everything you do is correct and nothing else is.
I think you're absolutely right, because we can make the mistake of rejecting all these, and then
Mhm.
end up losing the relationships. At the same
Mhm.
time, as you have said, we are not to embrace everything, but to actually look at what each practice is and
Mhm.
see whether we can incorporate that.
What is a typical family's response when you come at them with this like very unconventional thinking?
Christians a lot of times love to ask the question, what can I do? Or what can I
Hmm.
not do? But I don't think a lot of times life is like that, right? Life is all different. Everybody's different
Very
background.
nuanced. Yeah.
When it comes to this situation, which is once a lifetime, twice a lifetime, then they're very stuck. They don't know what to do. They want the list. So instead of give them the list, we give them a new perspective. They can find ways out of it. We try to be reasonable, and most of the time they're like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." Deep inside them, the struggle is not to fight this. The struggle is find a way out. So I think when you give it to them,
Yeah.
and then they actually with this
Feel
understanding,
relief.
oh, they're like,
Oh,
"Oh,
thank God. Thank
okay,
you so much.
yeah."
This is essentially what CantoSense is about as well, because
Mhm.
it is not a matter of rejecting totally, or nor accepting totally, but redeeming
Mhm.
what we can, and that is what you say, the alternative.
That's right.
I think unfortunately we don't do enough of that, and I'm so
Mm.
glad what you're doing at White Lily is
Mm.
giving the opportunity for people to see funeral rites in a different way. The other point that you have brought up, how funeral is an opportunity for evangelism. And I think a lot of Christians see it as that, and they tend to want everything to be
It
evangelistic.
is the perfect platform to evangelize, but it's not the right platform to evangelize.
Exactly. I agree with you. I totally agree with
So
you.
this is the
Yeah.
perfect one because this is the time when people think and
About
but
death and life.
this is not something you kind of force it down their throat, which is
Exactly.
what people do most of the time, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Absolutely. We don't
Yeah.
want to be opportunists.
Yeah, you just have to love them. We want to achieve a few things through funerals. One is that they will find out that the Christians are likable. That's number one. Seriously, they a lot of them would not have a lot of contacts with Christians, but
I
after
agree.
they
Yeah.
contact us, or they will, oh, Christians are nice. And second is that they would know the view of how Christians see death.
Mm-hmm.
And that will raise the curiosity. That's interesting. They're not wailing. They
Yeah.
don't talk about
Yeah.
blessing the whole doi and all that. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's, what did they believe? So
Mm-hmm.
and the third thing is that only if I can, I would give them the good news. I will actually give them the gospel, but only if the opportunity comes up. And it does. I've done it many times.
Mm-hmm.
While we're waiting to collect the body, there's a time that they will ask the question that I can easily give the good news in
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes. And so those are the goals. But besides those, you shouldn't do too much, because actually is you can drive people away easily. The funeral is a place to sow seeds and to build
That's well
relationship,
said. Yeah.
to demonstrate what the Bible is. Three good examples are people walk away comforted and they are curious about God.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Ka.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Well, that was fascinating, Ka. Thank you so much for being with us. And I think you brought some really salient points about just in terms of funeral rites and what we can do about it. And that is not to fully reject nor fully embrace, but to really think seriously about where can we contextualize, where can we redeem. And I think essentially that's what CantoSense is about, isn't it? Whatever we do with regards to culture, to traditions and rituals is not to reject, but to redeem. And I think Ka has beautifully put that in the context of funeral rites and all. And I hope that was helpful for all of us. Yeah.
And if you have questions from what was discussed today, please write into us, message us, DM us. We would love to hear from you. Our contact information will be at the end of this video. Subscribe to our channel, follow us on social media, and join us again for the next episode of CantoSense. We hope to see you soon.
See you.